Good morning and welcome back to the channel. You're probably thinking, I recognise that view. I recognise where he's been. Yes, you've guessed it. We are back at Skomer for day 2 on Skomer. We had such an amazing time when we were on Skomer earlier this week that while we were on the boat coming back, we had a quick check of the weather and we booked a second visit for today. Today's Thursday, so we're nearing the end of our trip now, and we thought what better way to finish it with a second visit to Skomer. There was plenty of puffins on the island when we went on Monday, but there were even more out on the water. And what the warden told us was that they pair up on the water. So when they first arrive back, obviously they go out to sea, they live their lives at sea. The only time the puffin come back to land is purely for breeding. And so when they first arrive back to the island, the first thing they do is they raft up on the water, and that's where they'll look for their mate. So they've not met them, they've not seen the mate for the entire duration that they've been out at sea, and they wait on the water till the mate returns, and only when the mate returns do the pair of them return to the burrow, and then they start to build the nest in preparation for laying the egg. And along comes one single puffin. They only raise one puffin a year, that's all they raise. That's why it's such a delicate subject. So hopefully today there will be more puffins than there were on Monday, because hopefully more of them will have paired up and started to arrive on the island. In all honesty though, if we had exactly the same amount as we had on Monday, I'd be happy, because we got plenty of wonderful encounters. I've not looked at any of my photographs yet. I've just downloaded them onto the laptop so that I've got them all ready to go. So we've got a full 5 hours on the island. So if puffins is something that floats your boat, come along for the journey and see what I see. So it's a rare occurrence. Jen's decided to get on the camera. Normally she scarpers to the opposite direction, but she's decided to get on it today. So we are stood on the jetty. We've only got one person in front of us, which is going to give us a pick of the boat of where to sit. I'm thinking perhaps we'll go on the top this time. We didn't go on the top until on the way home, so we might go on the top, give us a nice viewpoint from at the top. The only problem with that is it might be a little bit chilly, and there is a little bit of a bite to the breeze, isn't there? Yeah. So we're, as you can see, all packed up, ready to go. Jen's got the packed lunch, which is dead important. I've gone with a 2-camera setup again today, so I've got the Z9 with the 400mm on, and I've got my Z8 with a 70-200. I've also brought a 24-70mm lens, just in case I get those opportunities for an animal it's an environment shot. If a puffin comes reasonably close, then I'll switch over to that wide-angle lens, and I'll aim to get some of the shots of the puffin with the background behind it. I've got a couple of shots in mind, having been there on Monday, that I want to try and achieve today. So a couple of them are landscape shots with the animal in it. If the opportunity presents itself, I'll be looking to take several photographs and stitching those together to create a nice panoramic. That's the kind of the aim. The other thing that I've done today, different from Monday, is I've brought the tripod. I had the monopod on Monday, which is great and really makes you mobile. It just doesn't lend itself the same to getting really stable video. So the tripod will definitely achieve that, so I should get some better video than I did for Monday. Other than that, it's a very similar setup, and we're hoping to get just every bit as much as we did last time. On the short-eared owls. Yeah, so we've got a couple of people telling us about the short-eared owl. We just missed that. It was in a similar area to the hoopoo. So we'll go back to that area, see if we can see it, and definitely see if we can get any more glimpses of the hoopoo, which would be nice. So many steps. There are hundreds of them, and it's one of the things I would say if you're considering visiting Skomer. You need to have a reasonable amount of fitness, because the steps are steep, there's many of them, and that's just at the start, and it just gets really quite hard work, particularly when you're carrying all your camera equipment. And if you're not good on your feet, or you've got limited mobility, it might be just a little bit too much for some people. But what I will say is it's well worth it. Oh. And I can already see far more puffins than there were on Monday. In just 3 days, it's at least doubled in the number of puffins that are on the land. Would you say, Jen?
Yeah, at least.
At least doubled. They're literally everywhere. And because they had a lot of rain, the bluebells are blooming, which is also quite nice. Hoping that I can incorporate some of those into some of my photographs. Just seen a really nice wheat ear on the side of the cliff face. Again, a beautiful subject. This is going to be epic. So we've come to the north side of the island, which is really quite rugged in its cliff faces, and I think that's predominantly because the prevailing winds are hitting this side. So of course that means the waves are hitting this side more often than they are on the other side. But what it creates is quite a dramatic landscape and some real opportunities, if the puffins present themselves, of catching glimpses of them with a stunning backdrop. There's a raven coming right at us. Oh wow. The raven on this island, there's a buzzard just above, isn't there? The raven on this island are not shy at all. They'll come really quite close to you. And what's absolutely spectacular, if you're ever watching the raven, is that as the jackdaws come to mob them, the raven will barrel roll. It will do a complete turnover on its back. I've just spotted a little puffin in just a really nice location for an animal in its habitat shot, so I'm going to grab that just now. Because we're quite early in the season, what's interesting is that the puffins are not fully developed in terms of their breeding plumage. So if you look at the cheeks of the puffins that we've got photographs of today and possibly on Monday, they're still quite grey, and they become whiter and whiter the more into the breeding season they get. And obviously those beautiful plates on the side of their beak, they're what give the puffin really their kind of signature appearance. Those colourful beaks, those plates disappear as they come out of the breeding seasons. They're only there purely for the breeding season. And again, one of the things that I often look for when I'm looking for puffin at Flamborough Head is the coloration of the feet, because the feet are really vibrant in colour, that vibrant orangey red, and they go dull out of the breeding season. So it really goes to show that the puffins that people see on land, they're probably quite different and almost unrecognisable from the puffins that you potentially would see out at sea, out of the breeding season. So having spoken to the warden, they were suggesting that on Skomer, to give you an idea of its significance in terms of its conservation, they get 43,000 puffins I mean, that's a significant colony of puffins, but probably even more significant are the Manx shearwater. And they said, I think it was somewhere around 400,000 breeding pairs of Manx shearwater on the island. And that's why it's so important that when you're on the island, you never deviate off the path, because the burrows are absolutely everywhere. And if you deviate from the path, you stand a real chance of treading on one of those burrows, and they're relatively shallow, which would mean that they collapsed, destroying the egg or killing the chick inside. So it's really important that you stick to those paths. You'll notice on Skomer that there is a huge population of rabbits. Now, they're not natural to this island. They were actually introduced at the turn of the century to be reared and then sold for their furs. But they do a really important job on the island, and it's one of the reasons that the Manx shearwater and the puffins do so well on the island, and that's that they eat the grass. They're nature's lawnmower, and they keep the grass nice and short. Now, why that's significant and important to the puffins and the Manx shearwater is it means that as they're emerging from their burrows, they have got a good view around them, and they can keep an eye out for predators. If the grass was longer, they would struggle and be more easily predated on. And so the rabbits do a really important job. And then I suppose in turn, when the puffins and the shearwater are not here, the rabbits have got the absolute run of all of these different burrows. And that's symbiosis, where two different creatures coexist and benefit from the relationship from one another. And then in addition to that, there are two pairs of buzzards on this island, which is far too many for the size of the island that there is. But that's all to do with the number of rabbits that are available for them to predate on. And it allows the healthy population of buzzard. We're just approaching my favourite part of the island now, and that is the Wick. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the island, and it's got a water inlet with steep-sided cliffs on both sides, which create almost like a gorge. And the slopes are often favoured by the puffin. There's really, really nice foliage on the ground, and what we've got at the moment is some white flowers. I'd love to be able to tell you what those white flowers are. Maybe I'll research it and put their name up on the screen. But that creates a really nice backdrop to photograph the puffins in. It's also an incredible location to photograph the puffins in flight as they're coming back to the burrow, and you get them air braking with the wings out as they approach the burrow. But it really is a spectacular part of the island. So that's where we're heading next. I'm going to turn the camera on just so you can see. They are literally everywhere. Everywhere you look there's a puffin, and one just walked right up to the burrow that's literally at the end of my lens and went into the burrow at the end of the lens. It just goes to show you how cautious you've got to be and how it's really important you stick to the tracks, because they're literally right under your feet. You deviate from this path just slightest little bit and you could collapse the burrow. It's really easy to become overwhelmed when you've got so many puffins in front of you and so many different opportunities. So what I would encourage people to do is to just focus on one area and neglect those other areas. I've got a puffin right at my feet here, and then I've got a couple of puffins just off, and they're collecting burrow material, so they're pulling up the grass, they're pulling up the little bits of flowers, and that's what I'm focusing on. Now to my right there's probably about 40 different puffin, and the temptation is to constantly be swinging the lens around looking for the different shots that you can be getting, but I'd encourage you to just focus on one patch, really kind of work that area as much as possible and then move on to a different part. And by doing it that way, you've the best chance of capturing the most shots, rather than constantly flitting around from one place to another. that close. I'm filming it on the DJI Pocket. Oh, wow. Wow. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm looking for birds that are displaying behaviour. In particular, just before they take flight, they'll stretch their wings, as that's a really nice position to be able to get them. So they're still grounded, but they're stretching their wings, opening them up, flapping them in preparation to take flight, and that produces some really, really nice images. And then the second shot that I'm looking for, and I'm missing it right now as I'm talking to camera, is them coming to land, because they're so clumsy as they come into land. They come in really, really hot, air brake like crazy, and then kind of just drop on the floor in a heap. And it's those moments I'm trying to capture on camera. One of the shots I'm trying to achieve at the moment is to get them slightly obscured by the foliage. It's really quite easy to get shots of the birds as they're clean, so they're stood proud of the ground, and beak to their tip of their tail is all in focus. But the foliage is so nice. We've got these really rich green tones, and then interspersed with the white flowers, it makes it really, really nice to try and include that within the photograph. So I'm looking for moments where the bird is slightly obscured by that foliage, and I can capture shots of it in amongst it. And there's so many puffins in front of us now to choose from. That's really not very difficult at all. The advantages of getting the last boat of the day, which is what we're on, is when we first arrived to the Wick, this whole pathway was filled with people. And if I turn the camera around this way, whole way that way, it was filled with people. And now we've got it all to ourselves. I must say, one of my bucket list things to do is to come here and stay on the island. Tonight in particular, I think there'll be an absolutely sublime sunset, and to photograph these birds in that last golden hour of the day would just be absolutely exquisite. Definitely a reason to come back though, isn't it? I can't even begin to stress just how much better it is from Monday, and Monday was sensational, but today has just been out of this world. The numbers of puffin on this bank, I can't believe they're going to get more than there is now, but of course it is. It's going to get many, many more than there is now. It's just such a very special place. The Wick, absolutely stunning. with the chuff flying overhead and the puffins coming in by their thousands. Oh wow, I would say the last 2 hours could quite easily be the best 2 hours photography I've ever had in my life. It was wall to wall puffin in just beautiful conditions, probably a little harsh, but do you know what, I don't care, because it was just magical, absolutely magical. We're now very much on the last minute for the boat, so we're gonna have to walk quick double time to get back in time. I'm sure they'll wait for us. If they don't, what's going to happen? We're going to stay on the island for a night. Yes, please. Oh, wow, that was epic. And so we finished the video in the same place that we started it, back at Dinky Doo. Wow, what an incredible second day on Skomer Island we've had. I've come away with a few things that I think it's important that I share with you. The first one is, I've lugged a heavy tripod around with me for the entire 5 hours. I used it once and I really didn't need to. It's just not conducive to tripod work. The path in most places is really, really narrow. And so what that often means is you can't put the tripod out for fear of putting the tripod legs onto a burrow. So a tripod is a complete waste of time, in my opinion, for using on Skomer. You're much better to use a bag, a beam bag, your knees, or as I did on day one, which was a monopod. And a monopod was a much, much more effective way, and I used the monopod rather than using the tripod. So that's a really important takeaway. Second thing, what I would say is take a variety of focal lengths. At times the puffins were that close to 400 was just not conducive to taking good photographs. And so I used the 70 to 200, and then right at the end I switched to the 24 to 70. And in all honesty, the 24 to 70 has produced some lovely shots, or at least they look that way on the back of the camera, for animal in its habitat. So really nice environmental portraits, and something that I was aiming to achieve today. So I'm really pleased that I got those. What a difference 3 days makes. You know, on Monday we did see puffins. There was puffins on the island, but certainly not in the numbers that there were today. Today they were in the thousands. They were literally absolutely everywhere. Whereas on Monday they were just 1 or 2 here and there. And so, you know, as the season progresses, the numbers are only going to increase. And I think this year is going to be an absolutely incredible year for Skomer and its puffins. I mean, there was thousands on the water still as we was coming away from the island, and many of those will have yet to pair up and come onto the island to begin their nest building. So, you know, it's no bad thing coming at this time of the year. It's, you know, it's been really, really successful. Probably a little bit quieter as well than it is in the peak season. So it's definitely something that I would encourage you to consider. If you are going to do the day trips, what I would recommend is you take the last boat. We went on at 12 and we come off at 5. At 12 o'clock it was packed, particularly at the Wick. The Wick was very, very busy. So as you come away from the Wick to some of the other parts of the island is a little quieter, but really the Wick and that final place that we went to just beyond the Wick were my preferred places, and they were no doubt the busiest locations on the island. If you go on the later boats, as we've done, by the end of the day, you've only got a few people remaining on the island, so you're not in that position where you're falling over people trying to get the best spots. So I'd encourage you, make sure you get the later boat. I mean, I've not got the earlier boat to consider and compare it to, but it's definitely something that I would suggest of going for that later boat. The other thing that's quite important about the later boat is the light gets better and better. We arrived there and the light was really, really harsh. As the days progressed, the lights got better and better. My only kind of disappointment, if there was one, I'd love to be staying on that island now. The sun is going to set, it's going to be beautiful, there's going to be some stunning golden light, and what an incredible place to spend an evening. We've done it in August when there hasn't been the puffins on the island, But having seen what we've seen today, to be amongst those puffins in golden light would just be an absolutely incredible opportunity. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and a subscribe. A couple of people I've spoken to today said they watch the videos on the telly and they don't know how to subscribe. All you have to do is press up on your remote, click on my name, click on go to channel, click on subscribe. It's dead straightforward. You can do it from a telly. It doesn't just have to be done from a computer or a phone. So if you've not yet subscribed, about 40% of people watching these videos are not subscribers to the channel. So I'd really appreciate it if you would do. We've got a Buy Me a Coffee webpage. Link will be at the bottom and also in the description if you want to show that little bit of extra support. So from the absolutely beautiful, spectacular Skomer Island and those beautiful puffins, until next time, ta-ra.